So yeah, before I introduce ORCID, I'll just introduce you to my role and how ORCID fits within it. So I'm working on the Research Integrity Project until the end of July. I'm Newcastle University's Research Integrity Project Officer. And as part of this project, there's four key areas: the promotion of ORCID, induction mapping, research integrity training, and responsible use of research metrics. So the Research Integrity Project is it's part of the Research Culture program, and it's one of the top priority programs and projects within that program. I see a few more people joining. So yes, ORCID. First of all, a note on the terminology of ORCID. So ORCID is both the organization, but you'll also hear people refer to the IDs as ORCIDs or ORCID IDs. So that can cause a little bit of confusion. But to introduce you to the overall organization, it's a not-for-profit and it's global. Its mission is to enable transparent and trustworthy connections between researchers, their contributions and their affiliations by providing open researcher and contributor IDs for individuals as they engage in research scholarship and innovation activities. So there's currently 11.04 million active researchers across 67 countries using ORCID, and that's a number that keeps going up. As you can see from the chart there, the majority of organizations who do use ORCID generally tend to be universities, but it's also funders and publishers, policymakers as well. An organization who works with ORCID is JISC. So they're also a not-for-profit organization, and they provide digital resources and IT services to higher education in the public sector. And they support the UK ORCID Consortium. So, for example, Newcastle University is a member of the ORCID Consortium, Northumbria University is a member. So generally, they provide that institutional level support. So an ORCID ID is completely free, but organizations do pay for membership benefits. So like the kind of tracking data that I use. But I'm mainly here to introduce you to ORCID IDs. So they're free, unique, persistent identifiers. You may hear them referred to as PIDs for individuals to use as they engage in these research, scholarship, and innovation activities. One of the key benefits of an ORCID ID is it allows researchers to distinguish themselves from others with similar names and to claim credits for their own work. So, for example, you might have published under your initials, a maiden name. You may have a different name you go by in different countries. And it helps make sure that all of your works are correctly attributed to you. ORCID IDs also ease the sharing of data between your record and funders, publications, data repositories, and other research workflows. And an ORCID ID takes the form of a 16-digit number, like the example below. I'm just going to play a video now for you, introducing it in a bit more detail.
Meet Sofia Maria Hernandez Garcia. She is an active and accomplished scholar in her field. She does research, writes and publishes, teaches, speaks at conferences, the things that most researchers and scholars do throughout their career. She has done her work at several different organizations and has been fortunate to receive grants to support her research. Sofia wants to concentrate her time and energy on her scholarship, though sometimes things get in the way. Funding organizations want to review her past work before making an award. Her institution needs her to provide a complete list of her works for her promotion review. Potential collaborators are trying to figure out if she is the Sofia Garcia they're looking for. The internet, repositories, and other resources can help answer some of these questions, but they all have the same core challenge. They attempt to link research activities and research based on the spelling of a person's name. As individual as we each are, our names are actually not that unique. Even in the same field or institution, there can be others with similar or even the exact same name. And it can get even worse if you consider all of the potential variations of a name. Names can change over time, are sometimes expressed in different ways in different situations or languages. So when someone searches for Sophia, they may or may not find all, and only the things that can be attributed to her work. Today, many institutions and agencies solve this problem with paperwork. They ask Sophia to fill in forms, to list her works, and include her affiliations and funding history. Some may even ask her to list her collaborators along with their past work, affiliations, and funding. What is related to Sophia's work and what is not? There has to be a better way. ORCID IDs are unique and persistent identifiers specifically for researchers, analysts, and scholars. With an ORCID ID, Sophia can clarify what activities are hers, regardless of how her name is expressed. Sophia registered for a free ID at the ORCID.org website. ORCID is a nonprofit organization that allows our users to control what data are linked to their identifier and how those data are made public, shared with a limited group, or made private. The community may access data made public by our users for no fee, and also attach it to her organization and any new public research activities she engages in, such as publishing a paper, releasing a data set, or applying for a grant. With the ID attached to her activities, it makes it easier for people, institutions, and systems to figure out which activities are Sophia's, even if her name doesn't always appear in the same way, distinguishing her from others with the same or similar name. ORCID IDs are collected and used internationally by many institutions, including publishers, repositories, professional associations, universities, funders, and research organizations. In addition to attaching her ID to new activities, Sophia can allow these organizations to read her ORCID record to get her already curated list of past activities. Best of all, if Sophia leaves her current institution, the ID travels with her, along with the list of all of her past activities. She can continue to use the same ID throughout her career, even if she changes employers, moves to another country, or starts to do work in another field. By linking the ORCID ID to her work when submitting a manuscript, applying for a grant, or registering for a meeting, Sophia ensures that the organization she works with can get the information they need with less paperwork for her. It means people will find all and only her work when they search the internet. Sophia can spend her time concentrating on what matters most, and that makes her very happy. Get your ORCID ID today. It only takes 30 seconds to register for one and is completely free. ORCID, connecting research and researchers.
And so who should register for an ORCID ID? So mainly anyone involved in research, scholarship, and innovation is encouraged to register. And if you are based at Newcastle, and there is another step which we really strongly recommend, and that's linking MyImpact and your ORCID ID. And so the people who we encourage to register for an ORCID ID are researchers and academics at all career stages, including early career researchers and senior academics. ORCID's are really particularly beneficial for early career researchers who may end up moving around to different institutions throughout their career, and it just makes your data more portable. And similarly for postgrads as well, and especially if you're at the stage where you're submitting your dissertations or starting to think about publishing parts of it. We're also encouraging technicians, and especially again those involved in publications and data sets or research outputs or even funding to register, and professional services colleagues like myself who work in research support, and particularly if you're involved in grants or again publications. And obviously any author or contributor, it's a way to list your publications and funding and data sets. And so why get an ORCID ID? And it provides more time for research, name flexibility, customizable visibility, and it's uniquely yours. It reduces the admin burden, and it's a portable data profile. And so to really summarize these benefits and their attribution, it helps make sure that you have the correct works are attributed to you and that others aren't work by other people isn't attributed incorrectly to you. But one of the key reasons is that funders and publishers are increasingly requiring submitters to have an ORCID ID to actually be able to submit, and we're seeing that more and more. So it's good to have one now. And also it does save you time. And so, for example, at Newcastle University, we're swapping over from MyImpact to a new current research information system later this year, and having an ORCID ID and linking that to MyImpact will save you a lot of steps of manual work when we do swap over to that new system. And ORCID's also been shown to improve the visibility and discoverability of your research, and people do use the ORCID website to search, and so like you might filter by country or organization or the keywords which you put in. And it also acts as an online CV, and it can be a showcase for your achievements, including publications, qualifications, funding, and awards. And say, for example, you can download your information on there, so then you can use it to fill in CVs and application forms in a very easy copy and pastable format. And as mentioned before, the portability is also a real benefit. So if you're moving institutions, you've got that consistent ID, and it lets you carry data across the institutions, hopefully meaning, again, there's less manual work you need to do. And so if there's anything which you remember from the session, the key things are to add a minimum of 2 email addresses, and this ensures the portability. And so usually that's your institutional email address if you have one, and your personal one as well. And that just means that you don't get locked out of your account. ORCIDs aren't that useful if you don't have everyone set on your visibility. Really, the more visible you make the information, the more useful it is, and the more it increases your discoverability, and the better it works with other systems. So make sure to tick that green everyone for all of the relevant sections. One thing you might want to keep not fully visible to yourself is your own personal email address. So maybe have your institutional one is visible and your personal one is hidden. And also affiliating your account as well. And this means it's going to link up with your institution, and also that will often make it so there's a tick next to the information that's there, meaning that you haven't just submitted it yourself, it's verified, and it's more reliable. And another way to really get the most out of your ORCID ID is to link it to Scopus. So if you're not familiar with Scopus, it's a database of publications, and there are other ones you can link as well. Think of, say, Web of Science. And now, so that's a bit of confusion of which way around it works, but essentially ORCID can take information from Scopus and add it to your ORCID profile. It doesn't work the other way around currently. And say, for example, MyImpact, Newcastle University's current research information system, that scrapes Scopus for publications. And so if you link your ORCID ID, that sort of chain works better, and helping to ensure that there's less manual work for you. And I've linked some written guides and video guides for how to do that linking here. And so where should you use your ORCID ID? And so when submitting to publishers and funders, you can use it with ResearchFish, but ResearchFish is on its way out, so that's less valuable now. And also in university systems, Symplectic, which some universities use, MyImpact here at Newcastle University, ePrints, which are on the library website, and the data also linked to the library website. ORCID connects to all of them, and you'll be able to see the ID displaying next to your publications and data sets on there. It also can be used with the other sources which I've listed here, resources such as GitHub, and you can also include your ORCID ID in your email signature, as you can see an example of mine below. On your staff profile, it acts as a CV, but you can also link it on your CV itself. It's an easy way for reviewers and sort of panels to recruiters to have a look at verified information which you put on there. You can include it on your personal website, and some people also include it on their social media accounts, like Blue Sky and LinkedIn as well. And so here at Newcastle University, ORCID take has been quite high. So among research only and research and teaching colleagues who we track, 93.6% currently have their ORCID linked on MyImpact or accepted an affiliation request from the university on their accounts. And we're aiming to reach 100% prior to the new CRIS system and replacing MyImpact later this year. and as that will make things a lot easier for people using the system. And there's a link here for a guide of how to link ORCID and MyImpact. And for anyone at Newcastle University, if you do need any support with that, feel free to get in contact with me. I'm happy to sit with you for a one-on-one, or have a call and just work through that. But really, it's a fairly simple process, and it only takes about 5 minutes if you've already got your ID set up. We're also promoting ORCID IDs to PGRs, particularly, again, because it's of such benefit to early career researchers, but also technicians and other relevant professional services staff who are supporting research and scholarship. And further information is available on our library web pages as well. And so I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment as I share my own ORCID page. I'll just be a moment. Hopefully you can now see my own ORCID record. And so I'll just talk through a few of the boxes you can fill in on it, and some of the settings as well. So as you can see here, that's my ORCID ID, and there's a useful function here. And so once you've filled in the information, you can preview the public record. Here is the emails section, so you can add email addresses here. And as you can see, I've taken away my personal one, but normally, just while I'm sharing this, but normally I have both that on, and I have the personal one set for only me, and it's good to have your institution address set to everyone. You can also set which of your accounts gets email notifications. ORCID don't really spam me with email addresses, emails, thankfully, so it's fine to have it set to contact you. There's a box here to add your web pages. So for example, I've added my staff profile, and if you've got a personal website, and you can add your social media as well. And you can set the visibility of them. One way to increase your discoverability on ORCID is to add keywords. So usually they'd be your research area. And you can also add your country. People may be searching for collaborators. So good to have that on there too. And for the name section, you can see I've got my main name, and then I've got my middle name as well. So if you do have any variants or variations of your name, you can add them on there as well. So like if you've got an anglicized version of your name, you can include both there, and any name you publish under really. This bio section, there is a character limit on it, but it's quite high. But basically that's kind of where you can put the sort of CV type information. And one thing which not a lot of people realize about ORCID is there is an inbox. As you can see, I haven't had any messages on there, and it's not exactly obvious where it is. But one thing I would mention is that ORCID archives messages quite quickly. So it's good to have your settings, which I'll show you in a moment, set to get a notification immediately. But you will be able, there's an archive box which will appear around here. But they do go in after a few weeks there. And so you can add your employment, and you don't have to add up all of your employment history. So say, for example, I've added my 2 most recent roles at the university. And one useful feature I recommend for your current role is you can highlight your affiliation, so that'll appear at the top just by hitting that gold star there. And you can see it's gone green, it's worked. And yeah, you can add ORCID for the way you add information. It's not hugely prescriptive, and it's kind of up to you for a lot of the boxes. So if you do have something which you feel doesn't quite fit, there usually is space to add that there. You can add your education and qualifications, and sometimes that will feed through from systems like MyImpact, but it depends on when you've linked that. For professional activities, there's quite a lot of categories, and it isn't always clear. It's kind of up to you how you interpret that, but ORCID do have some guidance on what they mean by each of these categories. So you can add invited positions, So that might be, say, like if you're a visiting lecturer, a guest researcher, an honorary fellow, and you can add distinctions. So that might be like awards and prizes, and maybe for publication and what for your research, or something you've won during, say, like your studies. For memberships, so that's trade, industry bodies, professional associations. So, like, for example, online, Ambassador of English Literature, I'm a member of the Society of Authors, the Poetry Society, and so sort of equivalents in your field. Um, Service, it's quite a broad category. So that might be an expert panel member, a study group member, if you've organized a conference, if you've worked as part of a task force, a committee, as part of a project, that I will share the links at the end of the slides for the full guidance on that. An editorial service. So, for example, if you're worked as an editor for a journal, and for awards, you can just add to, like, if you're just shortlisted or longlisted for an award on there also. So generally, this will tend to be information which you manually fill in. You can also add funding here, and there are systems which it links with where it can automatically add your funding. Unfortunately, I don't have any funding, so I can't show you that. But you can search and link or add manually. Search and link is where you can search those other systems linked with ORCID and adding manually, so just inputting the information yourself. Similar to your employment history, you can also feature works as well from your publications. So you can search for them here, or you can go into these and install them similar to the employment history. Similar to funding, you can import from other services. So really, that's why we encourage you to link with Scopus if you do have any publications on there, is it will manually add everything. Scopus, unlike ORCID, you have less control over your profile, and it affiliates you with wherever you've put your institution for your most recent publication. So it is best to have a look over them and just check that the information imported from Scopus is correct, but that will save you a bit of time. Another good way to add publications is with the DOI link as well. The ones I've added here, I've just added manually. So as you can see, it's fairly self-explanatory. There's a lot of different categories. So say, for example, I've added an exhibition. You can add conference papers, book chapters, journal articles, dissertations, and book reviews, and sort of engagement activities like blog posts, and creative work, and data information, and actually you can also have teaching and supervision information, and that's a fairly new feature. And so I'm just going to go into the settings now. So you can set your the frequency of emails from ORCID, and as I say, they don't spam with emails, so I've just set to immediately. And since setting up an account in December, I think I've maybe had 2 emails. Visibility, again, this is really key, and we'll really encourage people to set to everyone. And you can see that it's only a small amount of users who are using it in these other ways, but really it's not that useful if you set it to only me. If you've set up an ORCID account before, and maybe you've used an email account from another institution which you've locked out of, you can't outright delete a duplicate record, but you can deprecate it. So that means that whenever anyone goes on that other ORCID ID, it will then link to your current one, and we'll just have a minimum amount of information, and everything will be linked back to your current ID. There's also code for adding it to your personal web page. So, for example, when I added it to my email signature, I just used this. And you can also generate a QR code. Say if you want to include that on a CV or as part of a presentation, or wherever you really need to share your ORCID profile. And you can give trusted organizations access. So as you can see, I've given Scopus access, though I don't have anything on Scopus, so unfortunately I can't fully show you that. But I've granted Newcastle University access as well, and so they can verify my information and help with that transfer of data when we go over to the new system. I think that is everything I wanted to show you on here. I'm just going to return to the slides. So yeah, I've highlighted a few resources here. So here at Newcastle University, the library is the main source of ORCID information and guides. Though if you do have any questions, do feel free to contact me if you need any more information on any aspects. We'll have a link to the ORCID and Scopus linking. Even if you're external to the university, it's the same way for everyone to link that. Your ORCID ID is part of, really for any researcher, to be part of a wider effort to increase your researcher visibility and maximize your research profile. We do have pages housed on the library with more ways to do that. So I'd encourage you to have a look at that also. And we do have that information also, which my colleague Stacey has put in a video format, which also talks through ORCID and Scopus and say that increasing your visibility on LinkedIn and other means. ORCID, the organization themselves, they have a link tree with lots of useful information and guides. They also do occasional webinars, often on more niche topics to do with ORCID, sort of often like data, software, that kind of things. And you find more information on their events page of upcoming webinars. And they also often have community town halls where you can go and ask any questions and learn best practice and what's going on at other institutions in terms of ORCID as well. And they also have a video giving a kind of similar demo to what I've given there of a tour of the ORCID record and some really useful links. I really encourage you to go on these, optimizing and updating your ORCID record. So if you're wondering what to put in any of the sections, publications, professional memberships, anything like that, they've got lists and examples on there. And so obviously do feel free to get in touch with me as well if you have any questions about them. And so here at Newcastle University, I'm the main point of contact for ORCID. But in terms of my wider work, we've got the research integrity email, that's confidential. We do have any questions about sort of like misconduct issues, anything like that. The policy and governance email, that goes to me and my whole team. So that's for more general queries. You can find out more information about our team on these research governance pages. For JISC, they have a help email address. So if you're trying to work out maybe any more sort of niche or complex uses of ORCID, or how they're integrated with any of their systems, JISC can often be a really, really good point of contact. And I've also included a link to their Teams page as well, which has a community where people often ask questions about sort of how to make the most of things and new developments in terms of ORCID. But if you have a sort of technical issue with your profile or anything, I've linked the ORCID contact form for ORCID as an organization. And just a few quick plugs. The Research Culture Programme Flash Report for Newcastle University colleagues and PGRs. If you sign up for that, you will get updates on what's going on at the university in terms of ORCID and via the Research Integrity Project, which I'm working on. And also for anyone at Newcastle University, the research space is a really good resource. It's essentially a kind of Teams page with a lot of guides and resources housed there. It's a sort of like mini web page.